Do you ever wonder how people get where they are? How your friends came to attending Mitty? How people initially got involved in their extracurricular activities? How your teachers and coaches came to working here? How I ended up standing here in front of all of you, talking about Mitty being home to me? I've always been fascinated by the journey people take to get to where they belong, what obstacles they had to overcome, and the people that were truly present in their lives to help support them along the way. Home to me is just that, a story or a journey about how an environment came to be filled with love and support that helped mold you into who you'd eventually become and what you'd eventually do. I was a public school kid all the way up through junior high. My brother, who was a year older than me, desperately wanted to attend Mitty for high school. When it came to my decision on high school, I had no interest in coming to Mitty, mostly because all of my friends would be going to the local public schools. But I also had very little confidence that I could hang with the academic and athletic challenges that were undoubtedly in store for me here. My mom and I sat in the front parking lot for over 2 hours talking about my decision when I finally said yes for the first time, just minutes before registration was due. I trusted my mom, and I believed that if she thought Mitty would be good for me, then I owed it to myself to give it my best effort. Just like the scripture described to us just now, these men took a risk that they otherwise maybe wouldn't have, and said yes, right there in that moment. Not because they knew how it would turn out, but because they believed in and trusted Jesus. That initial yes ultimately allowed this place to become an extension of my home, a place that was filled with individuals I felt supported by and loved. I think it's vital to show gratitude for the blessings we have in our lives and the impact it has on us. So please excuse me while I take a moment to name drop. Mrs. Falena was my freshman orientation senior student leader and the first person to welcome me into this community. Mr. Cronin was my religion teacher twice and the one who answers the question, how did I get up here speaking in front of all of you? Mrs. Caputo was in charge of admissions and she let me in twice, once as a student and once as a teacher. But the list goes on. Coach Hutton, Mrs. Medea, Mr. Walker, Coach Jojo, Mr. Keymont, Mrs. Lamack, Mr. Sampson, Coach Tart, Mr. Scherenberg, Mr. Fallis, Coach Haniger, Mr. Matroni, Miss Williams, Mr. Eagleson, Mr. De Palma, Mrs. Montano, Mr. Matthews and Mr. Brosnan, whose vision was this community. And finally, Mr. Witt, who was my public speaking teacher, and the one to blame if this speech goes wrong. And that's just who happens to still be here. My connections with them is where I learned what it meant to be truly present, and where I learned what helped me grow into who I wanted to become, and what I wanted to surround myself with, a sense of community that can only be described as home. So thank you. I was fresh out of high school, excited for the next stage of my life. I had it all planned out. Get my degree, find a firefighting job, buy a house, find love, and live happily ever after. And that was when my story again hit a pivot point and took a turn. And I had to reprioritize what was important in my life. I had moved on from trying to maximize the experience within a community, and it started becoming transactional. They were bullet points. I was checking off a list to get to my destination, rather than an experience where I was enjoying the journey like it was when I was here. My junior year of college, I took position as a volunteer firefighter, which required me to stop playing baseball, and in my mind, grow up. That same year, my mom was diagnosed with terminal cancer, and we didn't know how much more time we had left with her. Almost immediately, my thought process changed, and I realized that life is too short to only be planning for the future. This began a series of decisions that I made simply to maximize the now. I went back out for that college baseball team the next morning, leaving every morning with a good luck for my mom and coming home with a conversation about my day. When I graduated from college, I said yes to adopting a dog named Fenway, who's currently 14 years old, who I remember watching play in the backyard with my mom. I would come back to visit my Mitty home when I met up with Coach Hutton, who asked me to coach JV baseball, and I said yes. I then got a call from my college coach asking if I'd be interested in coaching in college as a volunteer assistant. I said yes. I'd pick up a job at Chili's to work shifts at night after my college practices just to pay the bills, ultimately introducing me to my wife, Heather, who was, and still is, my manager. And guess what? She said yes. I said yes to stepping out of my comfort zone and taking an opportunity to coach in Alaska. I said yes to leaving college baseball to coach softball here at Mitty because I knew this place is where my heart was. I said yes to countless substituting jobs before getting my first opportunity as a full-time teacher at Queen of Apostles next door. Some of my former students are in the crowd as seniors right now. Shout out to Rhea, Jazzy, Gia, AC, Sean, Zachary, Bettina, Abby, Jonathan, Carmen, and Eric. I didn't screw you up. To when I took the opportunity to be within this community full-time as a teacher and coach, to every day now in class, on the baseball field, and around campus when I'm reminded of how special this community is and why I often bring my 2 young boys to come hang out, watch a game, catch a show, or just be present with. Mitty is home, and not simply because of the amount of time that we spend here, but because of the community that surrounds us. It's the people we come in contact with and the moments that we share, often becoming memories on our journey. I know you all have big dreams for your future, but don't miss the opportunity to maximize your experience at home before it's over. I encourage you to find teachers, coaches, and friends that challenge you, force you to step you out of the comfort zone, and grow. Say yes to a challenge you face in an academic class and the support a teacher offers you. Say yes to going on a retreat or joining Cornerstone or Life Team. Say yes to participating in student activities, events, and packing the pit to support your friends. Say yes to getting involved on a sports team, speech and debate, robotics, club, or audition for a play. Say yes to being a friend when someone needs you most, or find someone that looks like they need a friend. Say yes to sporting admissions to ensure the next wave of Monarchs are as special as all of you are. This place is special, and I'm honored to have had the opportunity to share my story in this home with you. And remember, if life ever hits a pivot point, trust that you will forever have this community to lean on. Thank you.